Hey, welcome back to another Just 5 Mins. Um, what have we got? What have we got? Containers. Come on, one of my favourite subjects. Um, and Docker, basically, and modern sort of development setups and all that sort of stuff. And I do like Docker. I use it. Well, I wouldn't say daily, but certainly quite a bit of the time, mostly for not having to load stuff locally on your, say, laptop. You know, you could have everything in a Docker image and run a container. When you're done with it, you can get rid of it. So you can have all sorts of different environments, including, I can have Postgres running, I can have Microsoft SQL running, I can have whatever, but none of that's on my actual machine. And but anyway, so Docker's been around for a long time, obviously, and I did do a Just 5 Mins on Podman as well, which is another one that is sort of a container based, similar to Docker basically. And I saw a video recently and about, look, it was one of those, a bit of a clickbait, really. The guy was actually really good, actually, had a really good grasp of things, but it was a bit like, oh, don't use Docker, they'll grab you for licensing costs and all this sort of stuff. Use an open source alternative. And basically, I get it. I get it. Docker, um, you know, for I think a few years ago from the recording date, you can use it free for non-commercial use, but there is a limit, and you do have to pay for a license if you want to use it commercially. Well, it got me thinking about a whole host of things like that. Well, my good friend Tim Abel, who has a podcast called Software Should Be Free. I'll put a link below. It's very good. And Tim's got proper real world development and whatnot experience. So, anyway, but the point being is software should be free. And the whole open source thing where you've got to, I suppose, I get it, and I'm a fan. I really am. But at some point, you have to sort of earn money, don't you? You have to put a roof over your head, um, feed your family, and all that sort of stuff. And that's what I'm just wondering, is that if you find that something is useful for your business, especially, I get the whole idea about if you're just doing it, as a hobby thing and all the rest of it. But well, wouldn't you want to pay for everything? I mean, even in the quantum world of physics and everything, isn't it something about the conservation of energy? Energy gets exchanged, never destroyed, and all that sort of stuff. And I think that's probably the case, isn't it? I mean, you don't go to work and not get paid. Well, I suppose interns do, maybe, but do you know what I mean? There's always something. There's always some drive there for an exchange, isn't there? And I was thinking that with open source, unless you're actually getting a sponsored open source type thing, or people are donating, that's sort of still a form of payment, though, isn't it? Um, anyway, it got me thinking that, you know, I don't have a problem with Docker, and I don't have a problem with Podman. I don't have a problem with open source, but I think there's a reality that you've bloody well got to be paid, haven't you? You can't do stuff for free. At some level, like I say, donations, whatever, sponsorship. Anyway, it got me on an internal rant, luckily. But anyway, back to Docker and Podman, and there is a really interesting thing about the difference, and I get this now. I don't get it fully, but the fact that Docker and Podman are both, in fact, Podman pretty much apparently works with pretty much all of the Docker image and all the commands and everything else like that. I don't know if Podman's got a UI. I'm sure it does. I'm sure maybe there's lots of them. It's certainly got a Visual Studio Code extension. I know that. And I really do have to jump into that. But the point being is that Docker employs a client-side model. So it relies on a central daemon or daemon, Docker D. You don't want demons running around in your containers, do you? And it manages all the container operations, but typically requires root privileges. Yes, I am reading this. And that's one of the big things that people say. So in contrast, Podman operates without a central daemon, utilizing a fork exec model. I don't know if there's any knives there, there's forks, but anyway, where each container runs as a different child process of the Podman command. So it's what they call daemon-less design, basically. So I can see some big advantages there, and it is open source, but I don't know. I haven't looked into it deeply, but surely whoever is maintaining and running Podman, they need to eat. They need to have a roof over their head. So at some point, there's a energy exchange or financial exchange happening there. So I just thought it was weird with these sometimes these grabby sort of headlines, and I'm probably guilty as well. But the fact is, software should be free. Well, yeah, maybe, but we've all got to eat and we've all got to have a roof over our head. So, but Podman as a as an alternative to Docker, I reckon I'm really going to have a delve into that in the next few sessions. So, but right now, running Docker on a Mac or Windows or Linux or whatever, it's great. You've got clean, isolated environments. Bearing in mind that other thing that we've just mentioned about the way that Docker-D works instead of the other way. But anyway, I just thought it was an interesting thing because it wasn't just about Docker and Podman. It was about that whole fundamental thing about someone at some point has got to be paid for this stuff. You can't, as much as we'd love to do it for free, I think. So anyway, you can always let me know your thoughts as long as they're nice and professional. But anyway, but that's what I've got for this time around. Nothing overly sort of groundbreaking. But like I say, I will have a look at Podman and do maybe a video or something just to show what you can do running maybe both Docker and Podman side by side. So that's what I've got for this time around. So I hope you're well and have a good day, a week, whatever it is that you're up to. And we'll catch you on the next one.